to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and make that 4 straight wins for your Philadelphia Union against New York City, with that lone loss coming in the Eastern Conference Final in 2021. We all know it, the COVID game. The Union have been up for every single game against New York City, and you wonder, well, how do those players feel not being able to play in that COVID game? 4 straight wins. Saturday night's game might have been the best game we've seen in the last 4 games for the Union against New York City. And this team has looked fabulous the last 7 games, and we have a whole bunch of news to talk about. We have a whole bunch of clips. I think we have 7 clips for you guys to listen to this episode. I think that's the most I've ever played. So this is going to be a long podcast, and I know you guys are like, well, Todd, your podcasts are always long. But look, this one, some of the episodes I feel like, okay, this is going to be a short episode, and it turns out it's an hour-long episode. But this one is definitely going to be pushing an hour. Hopefully we don't go over too much of an hour, but it's definitely going to be a long episode. And I hope you guys had an enjoyable Memorial Day on Monday. Hopefully you guys were home spending time with family and friends and not working. That's great if you guys were not working, if you guys were able to just relax and have a nice 3-day weekend. And before we get into the news segment of the show, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to William Dusing for hitting me up on the YouTube channel and said, hey, look, the last 3-4 episodes, the audio has been pretty low on the podcast. And so I'm glad somebody brought that to my attention. And I tell you guys all the time, like, give me good feedback, give me bad feedback. I do not care, because I want to make this show as good as possible for you guys. So hopefully we have the audio corrected for this episode, because every time when I edit the podcast, not that you guys care what the process is like, but all the sound levels were looking like they were pretty good. But William hit me up, said the audio sounded low for him the last couple episodes, and then my good friend Brad hit me up and said, yeah, I meant to mention that to you. Come on, Brad, should have mentioned it to me when you noticed it. What are you doing? But yeah, give me good and bad feedback, people. Like, it does not offend me. And so if you guys don't like something about the show and you guys want to bring it to my attention, hit me up. I mean, there's so many ways you guys can hit me up, whether it be email, social media, YouTube. There's plenty of ways for you guys to get in contact with me. So, and thank you, William, for bringing that to my attention. And hopefully going forward, we have the audio issues corrected, and you guys will continue to get good content and good audio levels from me going forward. But like I said, I mean, we have a ton to talk about for this podcast episode. And let's just get straight into the news. All right, so we'll leave all the Philadelphia Union news segments towards the end of this segment. Let's start with 2 points out of Chicago, with number 1 being Chicago FC have announced that the club has signed defender/midfielder Mauricio Pineda to a new contract. Pineda, who originally signed with the Fire as a homegrown player in January 2020, is now under contract with the club through 2026. with an option for the 2027 season. Pineda has played 90 matches with the Fire, 78 of those being starts, scoring 5 goals and dishing out 4 assists as a defensive midfielder or defender. He's been a bright spot for a team that's not looked so bright the last couple seasons, and I don't know if Mauricio will eventually get sold overseas, because I feel like we see it all the time in MLS when players are coming through the academy, they eventually get sold overseas. I mean, I guess the primary examples are FC Dallas and then the Union with McKenzie and then the 2 Aronson brothers. But look, it's good to see teams investing in their academies and academy players coming up and playing valuable first team minutes, making a difference for the first team. And all clubs would love to have a player like Mauricio Pineda, who's not a world beater by any means, but he's a nice, solid, versatile player. And so he's well rewarded with a new contract in Chicago, like I said, through the 2026 season with an option for the 2027 season. Moving on to point number 2 out of Chicago is the Fire announced that winger Chris Mueller underwent a successful arthroscopic surgery procedure on his right hip. Mueller is expected to miss the remainder of the 2023 MLS campaign and is expected to make a full recovery prior to the start of the 2024 season. And Chris has played 10 games this MLS season, 8 of those being starts, 709 minutes, 2 goals, 2 assists. He's a player that we all know from Orlando City, and then he went to Scotland, didn't really work out for him, and he was able to come to his hometown in Chicago, play for the local team. And we all know he's been a thorn in the side for the Union. Thank goodness the Union don't play Chicago anymore this season, but that's a huge blow for a team that's not exactly where they want to be right now in MLS. I know ever since they've fired Ezra Hendrickson, they found a little bit of form. I mean, 2 crazy games against Atlanta United and then most recently New England. Both of those games ended 3-3. You're seeing Shaqiri contribute a little bit more to the squad, which, you know, if he's the highest paid player in MLS, you want him to constantly perform for your team. And it seems like, okay, he's fitting into what Chicago are doing. It seems like he's a little bit more motivated, but losing a player like Chris Mueller for the remainder of the season, that's a huge blow for that club. And there's going to have to be more players stepping up for that squad to help get them into the playoffs this season, which I think it's a really, really, really tough ask, but there's still a ton of MLS to be played this season, and anything's possible, right? Just like a ton of Union fans were panicking on social media 4 or 5 weeks ago and seeing the Union get knocked out of the CONCACAF Champions League and U.S. Open Cup in the same week, and everybody acts like the sky's falling down. And look, here's the Union, 7 games unbeaten now. They're pushing, and FC Cincinnati is making it tough for anybody to catch them, and they look like they're the clear favorites right now in MLS. But again, like I just mentioned, a lot of MLS to be played still, and anything can happen. But those are the 2 news points I wanted to bring up about Chicago. And now everything else we're going to talk about is Philadelphia Union newsworthy, with point number 1 being 4 Philadelphia Union players are in the top 25 of highest sold jerseys in MLS. Daniel Gazdag at 8, Andre Blake at 9, Julian Carranza at 18, and Jacob Glesnes at 24. Jacob Glesnes is the second highest defender jersey sold. Walker Zimmerman's number 1 with number 3 overall. Andre Blake is the only goalkeeper in the top 25 to have his jersey being one of the highest selling. And the Union, they have the second most jerseys in the top 25 with 4, with Seattle leading the way with 5. And your top 10 looks like Carlos Vela, number 1, Hani Mukhtar, number 2, Walker Zimmerman, number 3, Javier Chicharito, number 4, Jordan Morris, number 5, Joseph Martinez, number 6, Thiago Almada, number 7, Daniel Gazdag, 8, Andre Blake, 9, and Ricky Puig, number 10. And so there's your top 10 right there, the Philadelphia Union, with 2 players in the top 10 tying Nashville with Mukhtar and Walker Zimmerman. And I'm a little bit surprised that we don't see any Jose Martinez in the top 25, because I'm sure if you're like me and you go to Subaru Park, you guys notice a lot of Jose Martinez jerseys around the stadium. I haven't seen too many Julian Carranza jerseys, if I think about it. Andre Blake, yes. And this is something you guys have been asking for years. Sell goalkeeping jerseys. And Andre Blake, number 9, highest sold jersey in all of MLS. I'm curious. I would love to see how close the next goalkeeper is. I mean, definitely not top 50, right? I mean, top 100, probably, but top 50, I think, is a stretch. But to have a goalie be in the top 10 of highest sold jerseys, look, you guys wanted these jerseys, and you guys have put your money where your mouth is, and the team and the league's being rewarded with all of you guys buying all the Andre Blake jerseys. And I think it's really, really neat to see the Union have 4 players in the top 25, where a couple years ago, the Union would be lucky to get one. And I feel like that one player was Ale Bedoya all the time. And now Gazdag, Blake, Carranza, and Jacob Glesnes. And it's well deserved for Jacob Glesnes too, right? To be the second defender on this list. A little bit surprised too. We don't see Kai Wagner crack the top 25 list. But again, just like Julian Carranza, I don't see a ton of Kai Wagner jerseys in the stadium. So I'd be curious where he is on this list. But yeah, everybody loves Jacob Glesnes. And I'm curious, are they including the jerseys that may include number 5 and then shoot? Are they counting that as a Jacob Glesnes jersey, or does it have to say Jacob Glesnes? But yeah, well deserved for all 4 of those players. All 4 of those players are key players for the Union. A little bit surprised that Carlos Vela's at number 1, but I guess there's a ton of LAFC fans now in the league, and there are a ton of Mexican international fans all over the world, and they're going to support an ex-Mexican international superstar and continue to buy his jersey. But there you have it, the top 10 highest sold jerseys so far in MLS. I'll be curious what this list looks like come the end of the season. Maybe the Union add a couple more players in the top 25. Maybe Andre Blake goes into the top 5. I don't know. It's possible, right? But point number 2 I want to bring up is Julian Carranza and Jim Curtin. Both have made team of the match day. Yes. I said team of the match day, not team of the week. Finally got it right for week 15. And this is the 3rd player of the match day honor for Julian Carranza since the start of the 2022 season, which is tied for the 2nd most in MLS over that span, only behind Hani Mukhtar, who has 4. And we're going to talk about Julian Carranza a lot in this podcast. And we have some sound bites from Jim Curtin about Julian Carranza. Have a lot of thoughts on Carranza, just like I'm sure a lot of you guys did as well after that game. But nice to see Julian Carranza win the honor. Finally, I feel accomplished too with being a part of the North American Soccer Writers. My number 1 vote for the week finally wins a award. So feel like I contributed just a small midge to getting Julian Carranza that honor. Jim Curtin, well deserved, coached excellently against New York City. And I think probably part of that too, that they decided to make him coach of the match day, is because of the run the Union have been on the last couple of weeks. And they gave New York City the first loss at Citi Field. I think their first home loss on the season. So well deserved. And then Damian Lowe made the team of the match day squad for his performance. I definitely think if you were watching the first half, Damian Lowe definitely doesn't make team of the match day bench. But the second half, yeah, he was fantastic. And what a player he's been. And it's crazy because I go back to the episode when I'm talking with some fans. I'm giving you guys my thoughts on who I think's been the best signing in the offseason, who's going to be the best signing. And Damian Lowe was number 3 on that list for me. And here he is playing the best out of the best acquisitions the Union have made. And I get it right. Joaquin Torres and Andres Pereira haven't played a lot. So by default, Damian Lowe's going to be the best player. But I think I'm even a little bit surprised, shocked just with how well he's been playing and playing in that 3-back system. And the Union continue to get results playing 3 in the back. And I know Jim Curtin always says, yeah, the diamond's the base formation. He says it, I feel like, every week, whether it be to us in the media or whether it be to the commentators that interview him before games. He always says the diamond's the base. And that's great, Jim. But playing 3 in the back and you're getting these kind of results playing it, where you're scoring goals now, you're defending better than you did in the diamond. It's kind of hard to go away from 3 in the back, isn't it? And I know, Billy, you're going to argue, oh, it's 5 in the back. That's what the graphic shows. Come on, dude. Come on. Don't mean to bust your balls. And maybe some other people are feeling this way too. But when you attack, it's 3 in the back. When you defend, it's 5 in the back. So 3 in the back, 5 in the back, whatever you guys want to call it, it's essentially the same thing. And I just don't see how Jim Curtin goes away from that formation with the way it's been working here the last couple of weeks. And the last point I want to bring up is Jose Martinez and the Philadelphia Union are nearing a contract extension, according to Tom Bogert of The Athletic. Jose Martinez this season has a salary of $301,000, and I can't believe he makes such a low amount, which also feels crazy saying that's such a low amount because any of us listening to this podcast would gladly take that kind of salary every single season. You would be well off if you're making that much money. But when you look at some of the other defensive midfielders in the league getting paid double of what Jose's getting paid, and they're not even half of what Jose Martinez is, it's kind of laughable. And the credit goes to Ernst Tanner for getting the most bang out of his bucks. And Jose Martinez has been one of the best defensive midfielders the last 4 seasons, and he gets better and better. And Jim Curtin, too, said after the game, I don't have that clip lined up, which maybe I should have, but he said that Jose Martinez is so good going forward that Jim believes he can play on either side of the diamond, and that's something that Jim would like to see. And if that really is the case, that just gives the team another wrinkle to have more tactical flexibility to see, okay, well, let's throw in another defensive player back there in Jesus Bueno. And now you got 3 solid defensive players in Jose Martinez, Leon Flach, and Jesus Bueno that are going to piss you off defensively. They're going to hack at your legs. They're going to work tirelessly and win that ball back. But then you don't lose the offensive ability on the right side that you would with Ale Bedoya, because Jose Martinez, we're seeing the last couple games, what he can do offensively, how high he gets up that field. And so will we see Jose Martinez eventually play on the right side of the diamond at times? Potentially. When will we go back to the diamond? I guess that's another question. We'll see on Wednesday night. Maybe Jim Curtin goes back to it, but I just don't see how you do that with how well the team is playing right now currently with 3 in the back. But yeah, great to see Jose Martinez getting rewarded for how good he's played the last couple seasons. Remember, Tom Bogert reported in January that there was interest in Turkey from Besiktas for Jose, and no deal got done. And not saying that Jose Martinez is now never going to get sold because he's signing a contract extension. He could for sure still get sold. But what this does is, 1, give Jose Martinez the money that he deserves, 2, stability in a place, and 3, now because he signs a long-term contract, that's going to put his value up even higher if the Union do decide to sell Jose Martinez at some point. Hopefully that's not the case, because this team looks completely different when Jose's on the field, when he's not on the field. You know, things don't look as stable in the midfield, and the defense too at times look like they're having to overstep when it's Leon Flach playing as the lone number 6. So well-deserved contract extension coming up for Jose Martinez. And once we get the length and the money news bit down, we'll talk about it here on the podcast. But let's go ahead and talk about that New York City versus Philadelphia Union game. As we all know, the Union won that game by a score of 3-1. And I thought the first 15 minutes, the Union were fine. They were moving the ball quickly. Movement off the ball was good. But then after those 15 minutes, we saw the Union's 2 forwards dropping deeper to try to get on the ball. New York City had the Union pinned down in their own half, where it was difficult to try and move the ball forward. Damian Lowe was pulled out of position way too easily at times, which killed the Union's defensive structure. And now you have chaotic defending where players are just chasing the ball. Players aren't really in a position. And now that defensive stability that you had is non-existent because players are just chasing the ball and not staying in position. And we saw that in the first goal that New York City scored. Jose Martinez loses the ball, and now New York City's on the counterattack. It's a 4v4. Jack Elliott steps to the ball, Santi Rodriguez, and Jose Martinez doesn't track Richie Ledesma. And because of that, then Damian Lowe has to slot over and go for the ball, completely takes out Richie Ledesma, who's able to somehow get the pass away to Gabby Pereira, who was originally Damian Lowe's guy, and it's a beautiful finish. And by the way, you guys can check out the YouTube video of the goals breakdown. Probably not going to do that segment for this podcast just because it's a lot lined up for the podcast, and I definitely don't want to be pushing 130 minutes for this episode, especially with you guys listening on Tuesday, and then I'm sure some of you guys were listening on Wednesday, and then before you know it, we'll be recording a podcast on Thursday. So I don't want to give you guys too much content with too little time. So I want to give you guys time to digest what you just heard for the New York City game, and then it's time to go ahead and listen my thoughts on the Charlotte game. So yeah, probably no goals breakdown. You guys probably saw that I released that video early in the morning on Monday, so a lot of you guys have already seen it. And if you guys haven't, be sure to check out the video, youtube.com/freekickpod, or search The Free Kick, and eventually you guys will find the YouTube page. And if you guys haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the page, turn on notifications for when we upload all those videos. And we got to get back to recording fan interviews at the stadium. Maybe that happens this Wednesday at Charlotte, but Wednesday games are so tough. So I definitely want to get back to interviewing fans. And I know a little bit shy, definitely an introvert. And so I got to overcome that and put myself out there and make new connections, tell new people about the podcast, because I appreciate all you guys that are doing your part, reviewing the podcast, liking the podcast, sharing the podcast, and telling friends about the podcast. So I got to do my part too and go around the stadium and make people aware of the podcast. But anyway, a little bit of a distraction there talking about the YouTube page. Yeah, that first goal the Union gave up could have been avoided. Jose Martinez, like I said, loses the ball. It is what it is. But the Union, to their credit, were able to get 2 goals before the end of the half, and this is a completely different game. I thought Damian Lowe and Jose Martinez were probably the 2 poorest players on the field in the first half. 2 fouls committed by Damian Lowe, constantly getting caught up high on the field, constantly out of position because he's chasing the ball, playing aggressive to the ball, to the man. And because of that, New York City is able to pass around the Union a little bit too easily. Jose Martinez gives the ball away, doesn't track his runner, a couple poor passes here and there. Wasn't great for him in the first half, but makes up with it with a great secondary assist for the second goal, I believe it was. And then you had Jim Curtin after the game just speaking about, okay, well, we knew you guys were down 1-0. What changed afterwards?
If you saw, we started the game letting New York try to make the game, and we sat a little and looked to counter. They hurt us a little bit, and the group, I think when we went down 1-0, started to press proactively on their own. And we talked at halftime, and I gave them ownership. I said, guys, you want a high press? Because in my mind, I felt like they had energy off of it. And to a man, everybody shouted at the same time, yes, let's go. And they dictated that in the second half, and I thought it was good, overall. So a good team win, a good team effort, but certainly, 1-0, I think that their mentality and their mindset was that they knew what they were capable of getting a first goal and then a second goal.
Yeah, and we saw after New York City took the lead, Damian Lowe, Kai Wagner led the team in interceptions with 3. Jesus Bueno had 2. And Jim Curtin talked about Jesus Bueno after the game, Chris Donovan, bringing energy and not really losing anything when those 2 players came onto the field. They played with the same energy that the starting 11 had throughout the whole game. Jose Martinez had 3 tackles, won, the most on the Union in that stretch of time after New York City took the lead. So, it was good heads up. by the Union to have that wake-up call. And the Union, to their credit this season, when they have gone down, they've shown fight, whether it be to tie games up or to win games. The Union have the second most come from behind wins in MLS with 3, and only Dallas is leading them with 4. And so we may talk about at the beginning the panic. This team's losing. They're drawing. They're getting knocked out of 2 competitions. The world's ending. But this team has the mentality, and they show they still have that fight, even when they go down. And there is no questioning the team's mentality, I think. They care, right? When they drew against DC United, Kai Wagner talked about, I'm not sure what the team's mentality is. I'm pissed. I'm always trying my hardest, and the fans can see that. Some other guys on the team, maybe not so much, but that's not the case, I would say, with the starting 11 we saw last night against New York City. They fought. They fought hard to get a goal. And then not only do they get the first goal, they're pushing to get the second goal. And they go into halftime leading 2-1. The Union had no right to go into the half leading 2-1. And as Tyler Terrence and Devin Kerr said on the broadcast, it's just Route 1 stuff from the Union. It's so direct. It's typical Philadelphia Union soccer. Long balls over the top, and now they're in with a chance. And I was talking with Billy and Kyle in a group chat that we're a part of, and I was mad. I was like, why are we playing all these long balls on such a short field? And to the Union's credit, they played 54 long balls against New York City, which their average on the season is 79, I believe. So, they were well below their average. But that's the Philadelphia Union. Direct. And they're not going to get away from that. And all 3 goals came from direct soccer. And it's crazy. I mean, if I'm a New York City fan, I'm pissed. If I'm a player, if I'm on that coaching staff, I'm pissed that we dominated the first half to the Union. And 2 careless moments right before the half. We give up 2 goals, and now we're down losing? And now the manager's team talk completely changes? Now the mentality of those players completely changes? And now they got to chase the game at home? That's the perfect time for the Union to score, is going into half. And to get 1, you feel good if you're a Union fan. If the Union go in 1-1, all right, we're back in this. We can just continue to play our game. We don't have to chase the game. But you go into the half leading 2-1. It throws everything that the coaches on New York City's bench are talking about. The whole game plan completely changes. And I don't want to make excuses, right, for the way that New York City's playing. Yes, they're a little bit hard done with not having a proper 9, so they're playing Richie Ledesma as a false 9. But there's talent on this New York City team, and a big DP player in Thiago Martins makes 2 huge mistakes in this game against the Union. And that kills you when you're paying DP money. And it doesn't matter what player you're paying DP money to. You don't want to see those guys make mistakes. You don't want to see them cost you games. And it's going to happen, right? Doesn't matter if you're a DP player or if you're a player that's making a league minimum. Mistakes happen. I mean, you see mistakes happen from Messi, from Benzema, from Haaland, from Mbappe, some of the world's best players. Like, they're not prone to not making mistakes. But, you would expect DP players to play a little bit better than how Thiago Martins played against the Union Saturday night. And I think to flip it, like I said, not making excuses for New York City for not really having the right pieces out there. You got to flip it and give credit to the Union. Jim Curtin talked about the team wanting to high press and the high press working, catching New York City a little bit off guard, I think, making them uncomfortable, forcing bad passes, forcing the ball where, okay, they're completing the passes, but maybe they're going backwards, maybe they're going side to side. They're not going for it like they want to go. They're not doing these quick 1-2s. And that's a credit to the Union's high press. But then also, Julian Carranza was excellent on the night. And spoiler, he's star number 1 with his 2 goals. And could have had a hat trick. But he worked his butt off and made the most of his opportunities that he was given. And when you look at his last 5 games, he has 4 goals, 1 assist, 9 out of 13 shots on target. He doesn't waste many opportunities. And I put out a tweet saying Julian Carranza is too good for MLS. And I think we're watching a player that's starting to peak at the right time, around that summer transfer window. And of course, you want the team, you want players to peak around playoff time, but my mind's not focused on playoffs yet. My mind's focused on how did the Union get past this summer transfer window without losing anybody? Could the Union lose Kai Wagner, lose Julian Carranza? It's possible, because if Julian Carranza continues to score, it's going to be difficult for the Union to turn down an offer of 10 plus million for him, with a player that has an option for the 2024 season and then he can leave. I know Julian Carranza's not getting paid a ton of money like some of the top DP players in MLS. He's making $950,000 this season, which again is a ton of money. Any of us listening to the podcast would gladly take that every single season. But when you compare him to some of the other strikers in MLS, again, it goes back to Ernst Tanner getting great value out of his players. And Julian Carranza is a player who, of course, would love to test himself at European soccer. And if he continues to score, teams get desperate for goal scorers, where I don't think it's crazy if a team, let's say Burnley, comes in and says, hey, we'll offer you $10-15 million for Carranza. I think it's possible. Jim Curtin's talked about it in the past where there's been interest in Julian Carranza. And that's only going to go up if he continues to score goals heading into the summer transfer window. I think Julian Carranza would fit the style of play for Burnley. Would they pay $10-15 million for Julian? I don't think that's a crazy fee when you look at their highest paid transfer fee was $21.6 million in the 21-2022 season for Warhorse, who came from Wolverhampton, I want to say, now's on loan from Burnley at Manchester United. Now he'll go back to Burnley. I don't think Burnley's going to keep him. And so I think Vincent Kompany's happy with the squad that got him promoted, that won the league and the championship. But at the same time, right? Yes, you don't want to change too much of your squad, but you've got to make investments to stay in the Premier League because, yes, this team dominated in the championship. You guys had the league wrapped up super fast, but the championship isn't the Premier League. And so buying a couple players here and there, you're going to have to do that, Burnley. And so maybe Burnley comes in, like I said, offers 10-15 million for Julian Carranza. Maybe one of these other teams that recently got promoted, whether it be in the Premier League, La Liga, the Bundesliga, maybe it's a team that was fighting relegation, a mid-table team. I mean, there's so many teams that could use a player like Julian Carranza. And Jim Curtin mentioned it again, the comparison to Tati Castellanos. We see what Tati's doing in La Liga. New York City's getting paid this summer for Castellanos, who's only on loan at Girona. But I think Jim Curtin's right with his comparison to Tati Castellanos. And again, Jim Curtin mentions those comparisons after the game and talks about Julian's night.
You guys have heard me make the comparison a million times now, and it's a guy who scored a lot of goals on this field for New York City. And I think when you talk about killer instincts of a striker, whether it's Castellanos, Julian Carranza, that was an example of that killer instinct. Didn't have much space to get his shots off, did it in a very quick amount of time. And I talked to him, the 5 games stretch has been really good for him, but now it's not time to take it easy. The best strikers become greedy and killers, and he even became a little too greedy because he wanted to take the penalty kick from Daniel, but we stuck to the plan and got that sorted out, and Daniel took it. He wanted his hat trick. But yeah, great game from Julian. I thought his best game of the season in all phases, defending for us, working, holding the ball up, turning out of pressure in a tight field. That was his best game. And again, I don't know how long I'll get to work with him because I think he's that good. But I'm going to keep trying to push him as hard as I can. And those are two great goal scorer goals.
He is a great goal scorer. He is a player that, let's face it, is too talented for MLS. And yeah, it was the right move for him to leave Argentina to go to Miami, the wrong system in Miami, and then comes to Philadelphia now. And now he looks to be one of the best players in all MLS, one of the best strikers that doesn't get paid crazy striker DP money in MLS. And yeah, his days are numbered, I do believe, in MLS. And there's so many teams around the world, so many leagues that could use Julian Carranza. And what better player to pave the way for that than Tati Castellanos for what he did in La Liga, especially in that game against Real Madrid, where you guys remember 4 goals and social media absolutely blew up saying, oh, this MLS player did this. This MLS player is just owning Real Madrid. This MLS player is fitting in nicely in La Liga. That was such a smart move by New York City to, okay, they turned down $10, $11 million, whatever it was, from Palmeiras in Brazil. And they said, you know what, we're going to send you a loan to Europe and let's see how you do. And now we're talking 20, 25 plus $1 million for Tati Castellanos just because of those 4 goals against Real Madrid. He had a really good season in La Liga. He'll come back to New York City on loan, and some teams going to spend crazy money on Tati. He won't be playing in MLS this season. I'd be shocked if Tati Castellanos is playing in MLS. And so, people look at Julian Carranza and say, yeah, you're similar to Tati Castellanos. Well, if Tati Castellanos can do this in European soccer, why can't Julian Carranza? And like I said, he's getting hot at the right moment. 16 games last year for Julian Carranza to get 7 goals. It's only taken him 13 games this season, or technically it's only 12 because one game he came off the bench as a substitute. So yeah, he's finding his form a lot faster than he did last season. And since 2022, Daniel Gazdag and Julian Carranza have scored in the same game 11 times, going 9-0-2 in that stretch, which is the most in MLS for 2 players scoring in the same game. There's 11 times. The next closest is Mikel Ur and Daniel Gazdag with 7 games that they've both scored in. And wouldn't you figure? You invest your DP spots in your DP attackers and look at the results that you get. And again, that credit goes to Ernst Tanner for identifying Julian Carranza down in Miami, saying, hey, look, we can make this work. We believe he can fit our system. And I remember reading all the comments on social media from the Miami fans and Miami journalists saying, yeah, he's a defensive striker. I don't know what you're going to get offensively. And we know what we get offensively from Julian Carranza. Julian Carranza knows what he offers offensively. Now it's just a matter of getting other teams in Europe to see that not only is Julian Carranza a defensive striker, but he's a proven goal scorer. He's a clinical goal scorer. And teams will pay crazy money for those type of players. And does it happen this summer? Hopefully not for the Union's case. Maybe it's a deal where, okay, the Union sell him in the summer, and then they are able to get him on loan until the end of the MLS season, and then he goes to whatever team he got sold to. I think that could be a possibility. I think that would work out potentially for all sides. It just has to be the right team, I'm sure, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Will Julian Carranza be here the end of the season, just with how well that he's playing? And not only is Julian Carranza getting hot at the right time, but the Union's attack's getting hot at the right time as well. Through 14 games, the 2022 Philadelphia Union, they went 6-6-1, 24 points, 19 goals scored, 9 goals against. This season, 7-3-4, 24 points, 23 goals scored, 14 goals against. The offense is further ahead than they were last season. And I guess it's not really a shocker because they have a full season under their belt playing, so they know the runs each other wants to make. And I remember Jim Curtin telling us at the beginning of the season, the last thing to click is the offense. And here we are in 14 games this season. The offense is clicking. When you look, 19 out of the 23 goals scored this season for the Union are scored by that front three of Julian, Daniel, and Mikel, with Daniel and Julian leading the team with 7 goals apiece. Mikel has 5. And so this team is starting to get hot. 7 games unbeaten. And they don't look like they're missing a beat at all. Maybe some of us are panicking. Okay, what's this team going to look like without Jack McGlynn? Jack McGlynn changed this season with what he brought offensively. And now it's like, okay, well, we go back to Leon Flach. We know what we get from Leon Flach defensively, offensively, not much. Change the formation around a little bit, and we're getting results. And so I'll be curious, too, when Jack McGlynn comes back from the U20 World Cup, do we continue to play 3 in the back? What does Jack McGlynn look like playing as a number 6 next to Jose Martinez? Who do you pair Jack McGlynn with? Does Jack McGlynn get back into this lineup? Could Jack McGlynn potentially get sold as well? It's a possibility. So there's a lot to focus on when that summer transfer window opens up. That's what my focus is on right now. Just wondering how many players are going to be here through the summertime. Hopefully the Union don't lose anybody. If they do, hopefully there's an agreement where they can stay on loan until the end of the season, but we shall see. But Jim Curtin was asked about the team's form the last 7 games, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, it's never easy in this league. The table kind of means nothing. We're not like the Bundesliga or the Premier League where who's going to win it at the start of the season. So any team can beat us at any moment. So again, it's tricky. We have to be up to the task of recovering, resting now, and getting up for a Charlotte team that has a cross-country flight from LA, which is a little bit of a break from the scheduling gods. But there's no easy games in this league, home or away. Every 3 points matters. Every any chance you can get a win in this league, especially on the road like tonight, you have to really cherish it and be proud of your players. But yeah, we're in a good run of form. There's no question. But I still think, everybody knows we have a good team. We got beat by LAFC in the Champions League. I think there was a moment where everybody thought the sky was falling and we were in trouble. But yeah, we do our talking on the field, and I'll continue to let my players continue to talk really well. I'll just say on that field. So it's a good group with a lot of belief. It's the same group essentially as last season, and we're playing good soccer, and we know we're capable of playing even better.
And isn't that scary too? The Union haven't even hit their peak form, their best form. They're only going to get better. And when you look, 7 games unbeaten, like I mentioned a couple times here, 5 wins out of those 7 games, 15 goals scored, 6 goals conceded, 3 straight away wins, which is huge. 3 straight away wins. And I think if there's anything that I've taken away from this podcast, it's those 3 straight away wins. And I think that's something more people should be speaking about. Going to Colorado to get a win is difficult. Going to New York Red Bulls, I would say, was probably the easiest of those 3 away games that the Union had. And even if you want to talk about Minnesota United in the U.S. Open Cup, they didn't lose. Yes, they lost some penalties, but technically, the game ended in a draw. This team, where they were struggling at the beginning of the season, on the road, 4 straight games unbeaten, 3 straight games in the league that they've got to win. That is difficult to do with all the traveling and going up to New York City and beating them on such a small field. And I don't want to talk about that field anymore. I mean, I feel like we've talked about that plenty of times in the past in the podcast, and everybody makes the same joke on social media. It is what it is. But going to New York City where it's difficult to win, whether it be at Citi Field or Yankee Stadium, the Union, 4 straight wins, like I mentioned, against New York City. They're finding ways, back-to-back wins in New York City. It's amazing to see what this team is doing on the road. And not only that, but all the traveling supporters too. And I've got to give a credit to you guys. I was shocked to see that New York City decided to put the Union fans field level behind the goal. Did not expect them to do that. And the fans sounded excellent. Looked like there was at least 100 plus fans at Citi Field. A ton of fans in Colorado. And this is what I think the Union can expect more of this season. You continue to win. Especially, you continue to win on the road, because there is no better feeling in the world than going to an away game, seeing the Union win, and absolutely shutting up that home crowd. There's no better feeling in the world, and I know the players and the staff feel that, and as a fan, you definitely feel that too, with the players and the staff coming over, celebrating with you, applauding you, and it's always a great time out singing the home fans. And so I'll be curious to see, okay, what the next home game looks like. Well, Union fans continue to travel. I know the next 2 Union games are at home against Charlotte on Wednesday, and then they have Montreal on Saturday, and then they go to San Jose. It's probably not going to be a ton of Union fans in San Jose, but I said the same thing about Colorado, and there was at least 30 plus Union fans in Colorado. So maybe the same thing happens in San Jose in 2 weeks. That would be great, but it's going to happen for sure down in DC. And I think the Union just continue to win on the road. Fans are going to travel and just make it feel like it's a home game, even though it's a road game. So this 7 games unbeaten, those 3 straight away wins in the league, and it's been really, really good for the Union. Like I mentioned, the Union are second in MLS for come-from-behind victories with 3. Dallas has 4. And the Union, here's another interesting stat. I know I've given you guys a ton this episode. After the 75th minute, the Union are 5-1-0 when leading. So when the Union get to that part of the game, it's super difficult for the Union to blow the game when they're leading. So those are my thoughts on New York City. Let's go ahead and talk about 3 stars quickly. And told you guys, because we have a great blunder of the week. And no, Kyle, it's not the blunder of the week that you wanted me to suggest. It's something that happened a week ago in both the Inter Miami and Colorado Rapids games. 2 separate games. They did not play each other. It was during rivalry week. And we have 2 clips from both managers in that game that I want to play for you guys. Told you guys, a ton of sound bites for this episode. But star number 1 on the night, like I told you, Julian Carranza, 2 goals, 3 out of 4 shots on target, 1 interception, 1 out of 1 tackles won. Dude's always working his tail off defensively as well as offensively. Number 2, Daniel Gazdag, 1 goal, 5 passes into the final third, 24 out of 28 passes completed, 1 interception, 3 out of 5 ground duels won. Just like Julian Carranza, Daniel Gazdag works his tail off defensively too. And for this team to be successful, all 11 players have to play defense. All 11 players have to track back and contribute to winning that ball back and hitting the opposition on the counterattack. And exactly what happened in this game against New York City. And then star number 3 on the night, Mikhail Uhre, 1 assist, 3 chances created. I know that he hasn't scored a ton of goals here the last couple weeks, but he's getting more comfortable in the attack. He's linking up with Daniel and Julian Carranza nicely. He's making good runs that are stretching the defense, opening up that space for Julian Carranza and Daniel Gazdag. Things that don't pop up on the stat sheet, but it's just as big as a goal and an assist, opening up that space for your teammates to run into. And Mikel's doing a terrific job of that. So let's go ahead to Blunder of the Week. And so Blunder of the Week is going to go to both Phil Neville and Robin Fraser for the responses to the media last week. I have 2 sound bites, like I said, for you guys. I'll play Robin's first. And this was after the league result against RSL. And Robin Fraser was not happy with some of the questions asked to him by the media. The first question, I'm not going to play that clip because it's like 10 seconds. You guys don't need to hear it. But Robin just laughs off the question and makes the person who asked the question feel bad about themselves. And you can hear him say in the background, I'm sorry, it's been a long week. Like, he feels ashamed of his question. Never be ashamed of the question that you asked. And Robin Fraser knew exactly what he was doing. He was trying to make this guy feel bad. And so then the next question that was asked for him, a little bit of a similar response.
We've seen a couple goals recently of layoffs. We've seen some deflections, just kind of second ball in the box. Is that you guys just getting caught in position? Is it not desire to win those one-on-one battles? What do you think is leading to some of those shots going in that weren't in the year? Or is it just the other team hitting better shots?
Did you say not desire to win these one-on-one battles?
I mean, do you think your team is going in hard enough to block shots? Do you think they're trying to put their bodies on the line? I mean, I don't know how else to phrase it.
Oh, boy. We have given up goals, or we gave up goals tonight by not being in the right positions, by making mistakes with the ball. The turnovers have been our undoing quite often this year, and tonight, certainly the last one was that. There's so much more to it than the nitpicking of our guys closing quickly enough, or do they want to win their one-on-one battles. There's so much more to it than that. It's a team. And if the team doesn't function and move as a team, then people get isolated. And at this level, if people are isolated, then bad things happen. So the team needs to function as a team and move as a team and collectively be able to slow things down. The reason the goals were scored tonight is because they were able to get behind us. And so the question is, what are we doing in the box? That is part of it. But if we defend properly, they never get behind us and they don't get those opportunities.
And here's Phil Neville after his team's lost to Orlando City.
The formation was wrong.
Did he actually say that?
Yes.
He said that, did he?
You guys discussed that as a team.
Did we?
That's what he said.
Okay.
So today, you guys come out with the back five. You make the change halfway through the first.
Do you know why we made the change?
That's what the question.
Yeah. Well, we made the change because Sergi just didn't feel 100%. So no, I think what Leo said on Thursday was we take accountability for the defeat. I think you always look for things to be negative about Franco. So we won fight. No, can I finish speaking? Are you going to interrupt? Can I finish speaking? Okay, because I don't interrupt your question. Okay, so don't interrupt mine. Show some fucking respect. So. Sorry for the language. Sorry, what was the question? Ask me the question again, please, Franco.
Yeah, totally unprofessional from two managers that are completely under fire right now, that both their teams are underperforming. And I guess the one thing that both of these managers have in common is the injuries that their club has, especially in the midfield. But regardless, that's no way to treat the media. You have 4 straight losses in all competitions for the Rapids, 3 straight losses in MLS for Inter Miami. Miami currently sit in last place in the East, while Colorado sit in second to last place in the West. And neither manager, in my opinion, handled themselves well. I think Robin definitely corrected himself. But everything that he said at the beginning, he didn't have to go, ugh. And I know this is a audio-only podcast, and I'll leave a link in the show description so you guys can actually see the facial expression on Robin's face during that press conference, because I think his face says a lot that he's annoyed with the media. He was annoyed with the last two questions. And yeah, maybe they're not the greatest questions, but Robin didn't have to act that way. He could have just answered the question like he did, like he answered, and left everything else behind. And the guy, the media person, I'm sorry, I don't know who asked that, said, I don't know how else to phrase this, but this is my question. And Robin gets offended because the way that the media sees it in Colorado, it seems like, maybe some of those players aren't trying, that they don't care. And Robin takes that completely the wrong way. And I get it, right? You have people that are coming at your players and you want to protect your players, and, you take all the pressure. You want the pressure to be off the players. But there's a way you answer, and how he started answering that question after his facial expression that was fine. But all that should have been avoided. And Phil Neville gets mad at Franco for interrupting him. But Phil Neville's the one who originally interrupted Franco. Franco couldn't even finish his question without Phil Neville butting in and assuming what Franco's trying to say, saying, oh, do you know why we pulled Sergi out of the game? Well, no, I don't. That's my question. That's what I'm trying to get to. But you've interrupted my question, and now you get mad at me for interrupting you when you're the one who did it first. And so I don't think that's a great look there for Phil Neville. Robin Fraser, not the worst in the world, but again, I think his facial expressions and how he started his answer could have been avoided. And it's just interesting to see that we've got two managers in the same week having a go at the media. And I think as a league, managers aren't in a position where they can be talking to the media however they want, because being in Colorado, there wasn't a ton of people covering that team. Into Miami, there's not a ton of people covering the team. And so those teams should be happy that people are taking time out of their day to cover their teams, where majority of the people, newsflash, aren't getting paid. They're doing this freelance rise. And if they are getting paid, it's pennies. There's hardly any journalist in all of MLS that this is their career. Of course, all of us would make it a career if we could, if there was a ton of money involved. But the truth of the matter is there's just not a ton of opportunities out there to make the money that people want to make. But it's not stopping people from their love and their passion of covering the local clubs, covering the league. And if you're going to have managers that are acting this way, acting unprofessional to the media, the coverage is going to die. And then you're going to get 2-minute interviews from managers because you have the PR staff asking questions, and now you're not really going to get great stories to tell in the league. And that's going to be horrible for MLS. It's going to be horrible for Apple. And I think, again, credit to Robin, listening to his 2 press conferences after the one last weekend against RSL, his tone changed towards the media. So maybe somebody had a talk with him and said, hey, look, you could have handled that a different way. I'm not sure, I wasn't there. The only thing I know is, what I heard, the clip that you guys heard. And sorry for the audio not being the greatest. They don't mic up the people in the media when they're asking the questions. Only the coaches have the mic in front of them. So I try to make those clips as loud as possible. And if the audio was hard to hear, I do apologize for that. It's the best I can do with that. But again, just totally unprofessional from both managers, in my opinion. Phil Neville was definitely out of line. And both managers, like I said, dealing with injuries, and it's part of the reason why the results aren't there, but they're feeling the pressure that where majority of the league makes the playoffs. Yeah, question should be asked come the end of the season. If you don't make playoffs, should you be managing this team? And I guess there are excuses in Miami and Colorado for why the results aren't there with the injuries. But again, there's a way that you talk to the media, and both of their responses were not that way. So there you have it. Blunder of the week for this episode. Hopefully you guys like that. Hopefully you guys agree that those are two worthy additions for Blunder of the Week. And if you guys aren't following the podcast on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, follow @FreeKickPod, wherever you get the podcast, The Free Kick, the YouTube page, youtube.com/FreeKickPod. Be sure to leave those likes, subscribe, notifications on all platforms, wherever you guys get your social media information, wherever you guys get your podcast information, and for the YouTube page as well. And yeah, going to be a busy week again. Going to record a Thursday podcast episode for Charlotte, so that should come out on Friday. And then, of course, we'll record the podcast next Sunday for the Montreal game. We're going to have no preview episode for these two games. We will potentially have a guest one for San Jose. I need to reach out to Ted, who was on the podcast last year. I'm sure Ted wouldn't mind coming on the pod again. There's a lot of blast talking with him. A ton of knowledge for San Jose, who does the video play-by-play for the Earthquake. So going to reach out to him sometime this week. Hopefully we can get something arranged for a podcast next week and preview that San Jose game. But like I said at the beginning, hopefully you guys had a great Memorial Day. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic week. If you guys are going to Subaru Park and you guys want to meet up, hit me up. I love meeting new people. I love interacting with you guys. And I know I said at the beginning of the show, I'm an introvert, but if you tell me, hey, I listened to the podcast, well, we got something in common. We both enjoy the Philadelphia Union. We're both there for the Union. And I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to have a little 31-minute interview for our fan interview segment that we've only done one time on the YouTube page. So definitely want to continue that again. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.